Welcome back to the arena. I'm Michael Corrin and I'm very white. Yes, I am. It's white privilege. Now, my wife isn't completely white, but we just about get away with it. We try very, very hard. One of my best friends, a man I love dearly, he's mad. Tariq Fatah. You're not white, are you? No, you're not. Now,
look, I'll tell you something. My grandmother's French. I've got an Italian aunt, 2 British sisters-in-law.
Get out.
I'm serious.
Now, before
my son-in-law is white, so, but...
Now, before we go on, because
yes.
we're discussing white privilege and an attempt to establish white privilege workshops in the school system, which I don't think is going to happen. How long have I known you? 20 years? A long time. Love you dearly. Sometimes, though, you can be, as my father's family would have said, a Michiganer. You can be absolutely crazy. We're going to show a clip now of you at your best from last Friday on this network, getting very angry about white privilege. Let's have a look now, please.
I think that white privilege exists to a point. I think, though, that there's privilege, that we're all privileged in different ways. I think, for instance, say that there is such a thing as Muslim privilege. For instance, if Tariq goes to the airport...
Okay, let him answer, Tariq.
Just a second.
No, wait a second. Tariq, stop it. We listen to you. Tariq, we listen to you.
About
you don't have brown privilege to take over the show.
No.
JJ,
I should walk out.
Give your answer.
No, what I was going to say, if
why do you bring Muslim privilege in it? This bullshit is not acceptable.
Tariq, calm down.
No, I won't.
He's going to explain it to us.
Now,
yes,
that I think was just...
No, that was a diversionary tactic, very carefully employed, because
by
we're
whom?
discussing by McCullough.
Oh,
He's
come
talking Muslim. You really think there's a thing called Muslim privilege?
I do.
I
also think there's white privilege too.
Yes, but that's the point. The discussion was whether white privilege exists or not, and the evidence is so clear that it doesn't mean white people are racist. It means that from Socrates on to the Wright brothers, the European people of European ancestry have contributed to such a degree that the norm of human civilization is white. Acknowledging it doesn't mean somebody saying, oh, I had 100 slaves, now I've got to feel guilty about it. The fact remains, and I'll give you a specific example of just last week. 2 videos came out of beheadings. One, a British cabbie, and the other a Nigerian pilot. Both beheaded, one by ISIS, the other by Boko Haram. Even this network didn't cover the Nigerian beheading.
Now, let me respond to that, because we know each other very well. You know, I have always said, as horrible as the beheading of white volunteers in Iraq and Syria is, the people we should really concentrate on are the huge numbers who are murdered by ISIS, who can't get anywhere. Their families have lived there for thousands of years. Of course, we empathize with those we can identify with. Is that racism?
No, I never said
hold on.
that.
Is it privilege? No, I think that is a natural spasm, perhaps regrettable. Look, even repugnant. AIDS was killing hundreds of thousands of people in Africa for 30, 40 years. We took notice of it when it hit North America.
Rock Hudson.
That I would acknowledge.
That's all I'm saying.
Do you use, I mean, the example you use on the show, I don't want to obsess about the show, but I think, with respect, my friend, I think it was a poor one. It was that you were verified on Twitter. You weren't verified on Twitter.
I gave an example of how Sun's contributors are all verified. Most of you are.
I'm certified as well.
Certified, yeah. However, on Twitter, I gave that as a personal example, which I shouldn't have, because it's not about someone else. I'm not, and there's no way I will be.
I don't think that's because of your colour. Now, it may...
No.
Because
it's not about
your
colour.
politics may be an issue. No, that I could admit.
Michael, it is not about my colour. It is what is considered the normative. For example,
I disagree.
Michael Corrin or somebody else like Jerry Agar, it's easy to understand, easy to pronounce. It's the norm. How does somebody call Tariq Fatah every time in the last 65 years I've had to tell people how to pronounce it? Now I've given up and said, anyway.
Martina Navratilova, who was a world champion at tennis so many times, a number of occasions when umpires could not pronounce her name. At one point,
and
even
she didn't
her,
have white privilege.
Even her was fairly gracious. She said, for goodness sake, can you not pronounce my name properly? I think these are digressions. I think there is racism. I think there's still a bit of a double standard. However, Tariq, hold on. If we look at Canadian TV today, do you know the required demographic, the demographic that a lot of people in TV are looking for? South Asian women, attractive South Asian women.
Yes.
Because apparently it's non-threatening. It's very common now.
That I would call racism.
In a way, it is.
I'm talking of a completely separate issue, which is white privilege, which is normative, which is no one's fault, which is not about racism. It is how society is structured as what is a normative and what has to be thought about. Let me give you a second example.
Okay.
You could be the most awful driver on the street, and all the other person would say is, what a nasty driver. When I do the same thing, my entire tribe is nasty.
Now, I've heard you say this before.
Yes.
Is that true? Now, people generalize. They generalize. But take driving as an example.
Yes.
It's not a bad one. I mean, to a degree, and maybe it's banal, but I think it's quite perceptive. Women drivers.
Yes.
Yes, maybe Asian drivers. I think these things are said. Is that privilege or just a rather gutter response, which is dying out?
It is privilege because no white male will ever get white men don't know how to drive response.
They don't know how to jump, apparently.
That's a movie. But
dance,
white women
play
would.
basketball.
White women
box,
would. Chinese would. Indians would. Pakistanis would.
You know, within various communities and cultures, there is racism about other people.
Absolutely.
Often white people.
Or against white people.
Yes.
That's racism. I'm not even discussing that issue. I'm merely saying an acknowledgement that, and who I am the one labeling people for their anti-white racism within colored communities.
You are. Now, I think this has been an extremely productive discussion of the issue. Last few seconds we have. I think it's far too profound, complex, and adult to take place in a school. And I don't want workshops in the school system about white privilege with kids who can barely even read and write.
No, I accept that. Okay, I was not even discussing that.
Yeah. I'm glad we can agree on that.
This is an adult thing.
Listen to the white man, Tariq.
You guys ruled us for 200 years.
And did it extremely well.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because we've had great discussions because of my wife and so on and the things we've both experienced. And it's all about empathy. It's about feeling what you feel as much as possible.
For the other person.
If we can feel what other people feel, their race, their sexuality, their gender, their disability, we will be better people and the world will operate in a far more egalitarian manner.
Absolutely. That's why I keep telling people, the only non-racist folks that I run into, by the way, in Canada, who have been educated into anti-racism are white men. I'm being honest. It is white women sometimes who say, these people. I've never heard a white man say...
Don't generalize.
On the TTC, you hear that term often.
Well,
these people, and it's never a white man. It could be black, it could be Pakistani, it could be white women. White men have been thrashed into good behavior in the last 25 years.
Tariq, it has been a privilege, a white privilege, to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed.